there is, which is pretty fascinating to contemplate. Okay, well, we're probably need to forge ahead with the class here. We're moving ahead to Rule 14 finally. Just got 2 more rules and we'll finally be done. Rick said he wanted to point out something from observation he obtained, inspiration he obtained from last Rule 13. Rick, you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, years ago I was playing with electrical and etheric energy, trying to extract electricity right out of the air. And so when they started mentioning in Rule 13 that the magician must note the shade of violet, that the powers he's dealing with is the evidence, and that was sort of a giveaway. So, oh, he's going to talk about magnetism and electricity. And then he mentions from that he constructs a shadow, and then the shadow constructs himself. Well, if you construct a form with etheric energy, and by the way, electricity and etheric energy are mirrors of each other. If electricity is going this way, the ethers are flowing this way. But when he started talking about the color violet and the shadows, I realized that he was describing the magnetic field around a magnet, around a bar magnet, is invisible to regular eyes. But if you put a piece of paper over it and sprinkle iron filings, it will create.
Yeah, then you can see it real clear.
Right, and basically, so if you substitute for shadow, if you substitute a magnetic field, you're talking the same thing here, except the energy is flowing in the opposite directions. But he says you construct the shadow, and then when this is so, the shadow clothes itself. So in other words, that etheric, magnetic, electric spin is what it is. It attracts grosser, denser physical dust to it, and it creates its form.
Okay.
And along the same lines, I was also studying how cells figure out what kind of cell they're going to be within a body. So we have a body here of all these. What do we got? Like over 80 people in the molecular group now. When we start building these cells that we call molecules, what cell does what within a body is not determined. You might think, oh well, it's the information's in the DNA. No, all the cells have the same DNA. What tells a cell what it is its outer shell, its skin of the cell has receptors, and it knows where it is in a collective of other cells. So if you put a cell, down in the lower part of the body, it's going to say, oh, well, I should be an intestine, or I should be a rectum. Or that's how they figured it out, strictly by location. You put a cell, you take, what do you call it, a T cell that can be made into any other kind of cell. Put that in the middle of your brain, that T cell will become a brain cell. You put it down in your toe, it'll become a big toe cell.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And the rules of these rules of white magic are really rules that apply to creation. Every successful creation follows the principles in these rules. Where these rules take us beyond normal creation as we understand it in just in the physical plane here is it increases the power of the person with soul contact to be able to bring down higher spiritual creations to the physical plane. And this is what we want the white magician, and hopefully we're all prospects to be white magicians so that we can bring down higher creations than what people just create, we're using nuts and bolts and wrenches, you know, so we can create by the power of the mind. By using the power of the mind and spirit, we can create, bring down ideas from a high spiritual level, contact an idea that the material person wouldn't even think of accessing. So the white magician contacts these an idea from the higher planes, brings it down to the plane of the mind, formulates how it's going to manifest, and then he brings it down to the emotional plane. He energizes it with desire and feeling and passion, and then down to the physical plane where actual action of some kind takes place to finalize the manifestation. And so what we're looking at with these rules is the creation on a higher level than most people understand creation to be. Now, last time in finishing up this rule, we were talking about the shades of violet. And it's interesting looking at these shades because you also have to differentiate between the shades of violet and the aura. Because like even if you're trying to see the shades of violet in a physical object, if people have feeling around that object, like say a piece of clothing, like let's say Rick here likes a jacket that he wears. Okay, so you hang that jacket up, it will have a residual of Rick's auric color. So if you want to see the shade of violet in that aura, in that jacket, you're going to have to tune out his aura. But what I found is the shade of violet is actually really close to the physical form itself. So if you're looking at the shade of violet of your body, one good thing to do is you can look in the mirror and look at your face, and you will see some shades of violet occur right on your face or very, very close to your skin. And so according to the DK, each one of the kingdoms has a dominant ether that's different. Human kingdom has the dominant first ether, and then animal a second, vegetable a third, and the fourth ether is in the physical reality. Now, Curtis he saw a bunch of shades of violet when you were practicing. I'm proud of you, Curtis. I didn't, because usually you have to do quite a bit of practicing to see stuff like that. But you,
I can see a very subtle shade of violet in every person on this screen.
oh yeah. Well, good for you.
Well, Rick has more blue. He's got a lot of blue on. He's got a blue door back there. Ken, I see violet around you, Ken.
Well, I didn't know you were so sensitive, Curtis. How
well,
come you never shared that with me?
Get to know me a little better, Mr. Dude. Those who know me well know I'm very sensitive. I see, well, maybe around the face. It's in, like, Jill, I see some violet in your face. Very becoming of you. Ed, not so much.
Now,
there's Rena.
some people have violet in their aura, and that means they're a very spiritual person if you see it in their actual aura.
So much mental energy, it might be. That's the dominant. He's got a lot of blue. It's like Rick. Rena has violet. Look at her face. You can see it in her face. She's very violet. And Deanie has some violet too around your eyes. But Rena has the most. I can see the most violet in her. And Anya, I see violet in you. Stacy, I see some violet in you. Okay,
well, don't sound so surprised.
I don't see any violet in you, Joe. I'm looking pretty hard. Let's see if I can see any violet. Yeah, I see violet in you. And
In whom,
the
me?
female,
Oh,
you have some too. But it's a little bit overshadowed by the red that you're wearing.
do you see different shades of violet in the different kingdoms?
Yeah, when I was out the other day, I saw a wave of grass that had a strong violet hue, and then
How is it? How is that different from human violet, according to what you saw?
it's all a shade of violet.
Yeah, it's all a shade of violet, but he says they're all different shades. So, what's the difference in the shade, do you
I
think?
saw a bird um, fall out of a tree because I shone a light up into this tree, and this I must have hit this bird right in the eyes because it tumbled out, and it was violet. And I thought, man, here we are looking for violet shades of it, and there's a perfect example. It was a dove, and it had a high level of violet energy around it. Rocks have some minerals that have violet in them, but mostly it was evident in the grass that I saw and the bird. And now I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it on the screen. Rena has a lot of violet.
Yeah, I find the more life force there is, the more the violet is visible.
Well, the
Seems
women
to
must
be.
have a stronger life force because it's more apparent in them.
Well, they sure are
Oh,
attractive to us guys anyway, that's for sure.
that's a mystery all by itself.
Yeah.
I've noticed if you're massaging somebody's back and you see like a violet kind of glow to their back, if you look around it, you'll see that some of the spots on the back are a little bit darker shade. And if you talk to that person, you say, I see you might have a problem right here. And you touch that dark spot, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's the
Oh
spot.
yeah.
Oh.
Right,
So
their etheric body, if you just look at their etheric body, do that exercise like we've done at gatherings where you have somebody stand against a blank wall, stare at them for a minute, and then have them move away. You can see the etheric image afterglow. And if they've got a cold or something, you'll see some dark spots in their head, because there's a stoppage of energy flow and that produces the disturbance. And so it's interesting that, yeah, you'll see blockages in the body when people have a problem. Uh, so that's we'll probably use that to diagnose illnesses as a science one of these days when science figures out how the etheric body works.
Yeah,
yeah,
or
it
you
would be easy enough to create machinery that can detect etheric blockages and
It
whatnot.
shouldn't be that difficult. They've
It's,
got,
it's so close to what we're already doing with the electrical and machinery that it would be. In fact, there probably are already machines that can detect etheric energy.
well, they have the Carillion photography,
Yeah.
which is, some people think it's photographing the aura, but it's not. It's kind of photographing the energy of the etheric body. And so, yeah, if a person's sick, the Carillion photography shows less light they're radiating. So,
Rick, I'm gonna ask you a question, Rick. Because I've noticed when I'm doing massage body work, you notice that there's a cool spot maybe, or can you feel the dark areas in the body where the energy is blocked?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a sensation of touch, even if you're a little ways above the skin. As you go along, you can feel changes, resistance and whatnot, and you can actually overcome that mentally. If you feel a tight spot, you can tell your energy to flow into that. And I've created sparks about this big on a person's back and made them jump off the table
really?
by just mentally saying, yeah, I'm going to put energy there, and bang, it's like lightning comes off the fingers into their back.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that. I haven't had them jump off, but I hold them down with this elbow while I'm working with them with this hand. But I noticed that there are cool places and dark places
Yeah.
that you feel, and that's where you put your
Yeah, there is.
your cornhole.
Etheric energy is definitely tactile, and you can arrange magnets in such a way you can create etheric energy flow mechanically. You can play with etheric energy, make it go where you want by arranging magnets and whatnot and wires. So it's ether is very close to what we call physical. It's just a higher frequency of physical matter.
Well, there is a company, I can't remember the name of it, based on selling magnets in shoes and gloves, and that has to do with releasing opening energy centers in your body
I believe it.
using magnets. I can't remember the name of the company. Can you? Yeah, it's a network marketing company about 15,
Oh,
20
really?
years ago.
Oh, okay.
I'll think of it.
Okay, well, good comments, everybody. We'll proceed with Rule 14. I'll read it off to you. The sound swells out. The hour of danger to the soul courageous draweth near. The waters have not hurt the white creator, and naught could drown nor drench him. Danger from fire and flame menaces now, and dimly yet the rising smoke is seen. Let him again after the cycle of peace call upon the solar angel. He divides us into 4 categories: the centers and prana, the use of the hands, treading the way, and awakening of the centers. So first of all, we'll cover the centers and prana. And he says, he begins this comment on this chapter by telling us that the nearer the creation gets to the physical plane, the greater the difficulty. That's an interesting statement, because when you think about it, if you use your imagination, and it's pretty easy to imagine most any type of creation. We can use our imagination and imagine world peace, but getting world peace on the physical plane is a lot more difficult than just thinking about it. So this gives you an idea of the difficulty as the creation descends. He says there's 2 reasons behind the difficulty. 1, the automatic response of the dense physical matter to substance. Okay, so the dense physical matter has automatic response mechanisms that's built into it that have to be manipulated and overcome and directed in order to create manifestation here. And the second is the dangers incident to working with the fires or the pranas of the universe. This is the main concern, he says, of this rule. He says there's a matter of fact, when he talks about fire, he's talking about fire in a different way than we think about it with a physical fire. Thought itself, he says, is like a fire, you know. So the mechanism, the principle behind fire actually is something that energizes thought itself.
Is that like my God is a consuming fire?
Yeah, your God is a consuming thought. And also love is another type of a fire. So an emotion itself is a fire, and fires actually build everything. But matter is just fire vibrating more in a dense, focused form than the higher fires. And he says, one of the greatest works of magic is the descent of the soul into the physical body itself. So when you think about it, that's pretty true. And even the hardened atheist, when he sees the birth of a child, he has to admit that's really something, you know. So sometimes watching your own, especially your own child being born, is really a magical experience. To think that 1 minute it's you don't have a child, and then the next few minutes later you got one and it's alive and breathing, and it's really miraculous when you really think about it, especially when you experience a birth. And even watching animals being born is pretty magical in itself. And So he says the solar angel has to clothe itself with astral, mental, and etheric sheaths. It looks out through the fire and through the mist and sees distortion and reflection. He sees that which must mislead. So in other words, the solar angel looks down and he says, well, I have to incarnate. But he sees all these sheaths he has to go through. So this great spiritual essence that the solar angel is has to be covered up with all these sheaths which hide its glory and its knowledge and its intelligence, and has to come down in an extremely limited situation. Now, why would it do that voluntarily anyway? Why in the world would we leave our high estate as a being that can have access to all kinds of spiritual reality and peace and love and everything, and come down here and limit ourselves so much? Why would we do that? Why would anyone in their right mind do that?
We do it because it's fun.
It's fun. Right. And as we said before, it's a little bit like a game. You play the game, football or Monopoly or whatever game you want to play. What are you governed by? There's a whole bunch of restrictive rules, what we can't do and what we can do. And so as we're playing these games, we're under a lot of rules, and we have to learn the rules. Once we learn the rules, then we can play the game, and it's fun, even though there's a lot of things you can't do. If you roll the dice and it says 2, you can't move 4, you can't move 6, you can't move 12, you can only move 2. So you're limited where you can move. Now, if you throw away the rule book, well, you can move wherever you want, but then the game isn't fun anymore. So the whole game of life is created with all these limitations that we might call rules and regulations to restrict us to a situation where we can expand and grow beyond anything that we were before. So it's an interesting thing to think about it. That life is a game is an interesting concept, because people talk about how mysterious life is, that the meaning behind life is just so deep. It's not really very deep at all. It's just reduced to the fact that all life wants to have experience, and have interesting experience, you have to create a game-like situation where there's certain things, certain rules you have to learn. So that we come down here, we're born, we have no memory at all, we don't know what's going on, and we have to learn the rules one by one as to what we're supposed to do in this life. And once you learn a rule, what do you have to do? You have to follow it. If you don't follow it, then you're going to be off in the ditch somewhere. And so you have to follow the rules once you learn them. And we learn them piece by piece, and it takes, there's certain rules we have to learn in each life, and then other rules we learn through a series of lives, and then with all of our lives together in one batch, there's just a certain bigger set of rules. Once all the rules are learned and followed, what happens? Who's going to answer that question? What will happen then, Stacy, when we learn all the rules?
You find liberation. You
Right,
find the ultimate of what you're looking
liberation. And where do you go when you're liberated?
for? Well, wherever you want to go. You go into infinity.
Right, that's true. You pretty much do whatever you want to do. You return to spirit and with full power, but you have a greater realization and appreciation of everything you've got after you get back there. And it's a little bit like when you take a journey, you have kind of a rough time, and you get back home. What do you say when you walk through the door? Usually you say, and I've said this many times, there's no place like home. When you finally get back on, and once you've kind of had a vacation that didn't go as you planned, and you get back home, just you have a stronger appreciation for home than you had when you left it. And that's the way it will be when we return. But we'll return much wiser than we left.
The other thing is, we also, as soon as you finish one test, you start to discover, oh, there's an upper class. There's a whole nother classroom waiting for me to join.
Right. There's no end. I mean, it goes on for eternity.
Forever, yeah.
I mean, we go back home. Okay, you go on vacation, or you go to your job, or you go to some enterprise, and you have kind of a tough time. You learn some things. You come back home. Are you going to just stay around the house forever? Yeah, pretty soon you get bored. You want to go out of the house and do something. Okay, so that's the same thing. We return to spirit, to our spiritual essence. Everything's cool. We can do whatever we want. We got all kinds of spiritual power. But after a certain amount of time back there, then we get bored again.
That's why we reincarnate.
Well, we're going to have to engineer this. And that, yeah. And God creates a universe. God gets bored, so he creates a whole universe, does everything possible, and the universe ends, and then he has a period of pralaya for millions and billions of years, perhaps. And then he thinks, well, I got to do something else with my time. So
then he creates multi-universes.
So he creates all over again, right? And yeah, we don't know everything that's out there, but it's more than we can imagine, that's for sure. He says the etheric matter is composed of thousands of interlocking streams of force that produce 7 major centers and many focal points. So we not only have the 7 major centers, but there's all kinds of linking streams of energy in the etheric matter that produce smaller centers, and then smaller centers still until you get to these little tiny centers called nadis. Now, the bigger centers are shown in acupuncture points. When they do acupuncture on you, they have different minor centers that they put the needles in, and this creates stimulates energy flow that may be blocked there, and the needle causes it to unblock somewhat. So the acupuncturists have found quite a few of the minor centers, but then these energy centers cross and they create the 7 major centers. Okay, the 7 major centers, most of you probably know what they are. The first one is at the base of the spine, and each one of the centers is kind of like a lotus, and they have a different number of petals on them. The first center is at the base of the spine, and it's like the foundation of all the other centers. From this proceeds up energy that goes through all the other centers. And the base of the spine has 4 petals. The next is the sacral center, and that governs sex and physical creation, and it has 7 petals. Next up is the solar plexus. It governs the feelings, and now the kind of just the normal passions and feelings that we everybody experiences. It has 10 petals. And we go up to the heart, and it has 12 petals. Now the heart also has a reflection up in the head of 12-petaled center in the head as well as the heart. So it's actually in 2 different places. Next is the ajna center, which is known as the third eye, or the center between the eyebrows. And that has 2 major petals, and each one of these petals is composed of 48 apiece, producing 96 altogether. And then at the top of the head, the crown has 1,000, or, oh, forgot the throat center. The throat center has 16 petals, and it governs physical creativity to a large degree, and the lungs and breath. then the Ajna center, as I said, and then at the top of the crown is the 1,000-petaled lotus. And I figure that each one of these 1,000 petals stands for one life. Now, that doesn't mean you have exactly 1,000 lives, but there's 1,000 different things to learn that can be done in 1,000 lives, but for some people it may take longer, some people it may take a little less. So the interesting thing about the petals is the petals are all energy related. So for instance, the average person will have most of his solar plexus petals unfolded. They unfold. And when the petals unfold, it releases a new type of energy into your being. Now, when this happens, first of all, it will be somewhat disturbing and you may suffer some ill health till you start to adjust to the new energy. Has anybody here relate to that? That, you know, you've been going through life and all of a sudden you felt a new type of energy, it's like released into your body that kind of was disturbing at first, maybe produced some ill health, and then when you adjusted to it, then kind of you normalized. Can anyone identify with that?
I can, JJ.
Okay, tell us about your experience.
Well, I've been doing, my meditations, my prayers, and I don't know, I experienced this shift, and what my body was so uncomfortable. It was like I couldn't sit still. It was just because something had changed. My body, my physical body was not adjusted to it, and it was really it was just an unusual experience to feel that level of discomfort. I knew that it was because there was some new energy being released, and I just observed it as best I could without getting sidetracked into doing something to make my body happy.
Yeah, it sounds like you were definitely experiencing the unfolding of a petal. Did you come to any new realizations as that was happening?
I did, JJ, and it's right now I'm just getting ready to leave home and start driving, and it's hard for me to recall exactly what what the ideas and realizations were, but things that I had like pondered in the past, all of a sudden I saw them in a new light. Things I had thought about, the connection, the one universe, we're all a part of that universe, experiencing that connection, how people don't realize how connected we all are. I didn't realize how connected we all are.
Sounds like it might have been connected with your head center there somewhere because you were getting new ideas there.
Yeah.
Now, oftentimes, for instance, when a person's one of his petals in his heart center starts to unfold, he'll have some type of heart problem develop. And then as he begins to understand what he's supposed to learn about spiritual love, then the heart problem will go away. If he doesn't solve it, if he doesn't manage the energy correctly, then it may not go away. So when you feel like a new energy coming into your body, always try to figure out what it is. If you sense it's an unfolding of a new energy, just not something just purely physical, then there's a lesson that you have to learn in connection with the releasing of this new energy. So you have to ask yourself, where is this taking me? What am I supposed to realize? Okay, he says, final stage is reached, and solar fire and fire by friction must be brought into contact with 3 most ancient fires, which he says. These are associated with the gaseous, liquid, and dense. So he talks about these higher fires, the fires in our etheric body that we talked about, the 4 shades of violet. They must come in contact with the 3 most ancient fires, and they are associated with the physical realm of gas, liquid, and material matter. And in other words, regular matter must join with the higher fires to reach its full potential. He says, our danger occurs when the soul must bring into atonement, or at one-ment is the way he spells it out, the etheric body and the gaseous envelope, which is the highest aspect of the dense physical sheath, the instrument of tangible organic manifestation. So the etheric body, there's a strong connection between the etheric body and our air, apparently. So now within us, where do we find air? Find it in our lungs, right? So we breathe our air into our lungs, and through the process of breath, we make a connection between the physical breath and the etheric body. This is where the connection is highest, and this is why different types of breathing exercises is capable of producing a lot of good or a lot of bad. It can, if done incorrectly, it can produce fires that can destroy. If done correctly, it can produce fires that can build and take you closer to spirit. So he warns that any breathing exercises you do, you have to either follow your own soul and make sure you're safe, or be under the instruction of somebody that knows what they're doing, that can guide you in such a way that your exercises can be productive. And also, what works for one person may not work for another as far as different breathing exercises. So whatever you do with breath, what I do with breath, if I ever try an exercise, I try it for a while, and then I see what my body thinks about it. Okay, if my body doesn't register well, then I don't do it anymore. If it registers good, then I continue doing it. And so anything you do with breath, proceed cautiously and check with yourself about how your body is handling it. Says the creation can be frustrated because of too much energy applied or not enough focus or attention. Too much creates destruction by fire, and too little, not enough by fire. Many babies, he says, are aborted or stillborn because the soul lost interest and didn't put enough attention on the incarnating process. So in other words, a lot of babies are aborted or stillborn because, you know, the soul was kind of interested in incarnating, and maybe something happened. Maybe it saw the parents were maybe thinking of a divorce or something. And so it thought, well, you know, I'm not sure if I really want to come down this situation. So the soul quits putting attention on creating the baby in the womb, and thus it becomes stillborn. And he says this is often the cause of this problem. The soul just loses interest in incarnating in that particular situation. It's funny, one of my kids, when he was born, I delivered, I was at the birth of all my children and delivered all but one. And when I delivered our last one, he didn't really seem to want to wasn't sure if he wanted to come down or not. I could tell because he was stillborn. And so what I did, I took him and I slapped his bottom, and then he come alive. So it was almost like he wasn't sure if he wanted to come down in that situation or not, because we did get a divorce shortly thereafter. So, from my first wife. So, um, so I think he was kind of debating whether or not he wanted to come down. And this often happens. So, if the person is stillborn, we really shouldn't feel that bad about it, because it was the choice of the soul, and it did what it wanted to do. He says a magician must learn to work with the energies of the etheric body and adjust the fires by thought, so he has a healthy, usable body and enhanced consciousness. So this is a key phrase here: adjust the fires by our thought. So we adjust the fires physically. We can adjust the fires with our breath. And one important thing with your breath is to breathe in deeply, because a lot of people breathe incorrectly. A baby learns to breathe correctly. It breathes clear in, not only in its chest area, but clear down to its tummy. And then as we grow up, we start to learn to breathe incorrectly, where we just breathe in our chest area. The person should breathe all the way down to the stomach. So you breathe in like 3 steps. First of all, the first step is to breathe into your chest area. Then the second stage of breath, concentrate on breathing into your tummy. And then the third stage, concentrate on breathing into your whole being. Okay, and then breathe out slowly also. And if you breathe deeply, it will help you adjust the fires of your body. That's the physical thing you can do. But he points out thought is very important also. So energy follows thought. So anybody got any ideas on how you can use your thought for adjusting the fires of your body so your health is enhanced, like he says? Anybody got any ideas on that?
I think some of it might be an automatic process. I remember reading years ago that as a man raises up in his level of goodness, that he begins replacing the bad matter with good matter in his body. And I always wondered, man, I'm going to have a hard time with that one, because But then I realized the last couple of months, things that are bad habits like drinking and smoking and stuff like that, all of a sudden, the idea of having a drink is like, oh no, that would taste yucky. Or having a smoke, oh no, I've lost my taste for my bad habits, and it's like, how did that happen?
Yeah, right. How about you, Ed? Do you have you had good luck with the rule of energy following thought? Has that had meaning for you in your life?
I have. I know that if I focus on different ideas, I can feel in my body, I can feel a different vibration, a different way I feel. And I've done some thinking about that, and we've heard all through our lives that thoughts are things. And in the nature of the soul, they speak of thought, they speak of mind, and higher mind as a higher redeemed matter. So mind and matter are very closely related.
Yeah.
And as we attune our mind to different images, we actually are creating forms in matter.
Yeah, we just don't realize how much power we have with the mind, do we?
You use your mind. What I've found, I use my mind to control, to a great extent, the activities of my body, like breathing down. If you're not conscious, you won't breathe to what one of the authors I read recently calls your core, the core of your body, which is 4 inches below your navel. Most people are shallow breathers. They'll breathe into just below their diaphragm and no further. So intelligently, you can use your mind to adjust how much oxygen you want to flow through your body. You can adjust your heart rate. You can adjust, most of the movements of your body. Many are involuntary, but even they can be controlled by your mind to a great extent.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention with breath is that if a person is a shallow breather and then he practices breathing deep, first of all, he's going to have to put a lot of tension on, but then after he does it for a while, it'll become natural. So you won't have to put energy into it. It'll
Yeah,
be
that's what
below
you
the,
find. You begin to breathe all the way down, and you'll catch yourself in the beginning not doing it, and then you'll find, well, I am doing it. And Leonard Orr and Sandra Ray and their rebirthing techniques introduced circular breathing, where there was no gap between the breath. And if you did that for an hour or so, you found that the oxygen would actually burn through neural pathways in your mental body, and you could journey all the way back to the day you were born.
yeah.
Through breathing.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting thing he came up with.
Yeah, it works.
Now, the next question he asked is, what is prana? Since you're talking there, Curtis, what is prana?
Well, prana, that's the life force from the world that we live in, that we can breathe in. We breathe in pranic energy. Comes from the sun. As far as I know, it's created by the
Yeah.
sun.
He says there's 5 different differentiations of prana. The first is just called prana. This extends from the nose to the heart and having special relation to the mouth and speech, the heart and lungs. The second type of prana he calls samana, which extends from the heart to the solar plexus, concerns the food, the nourishing of body through the medium of food and drink, and has special relation to the stomach. So in other words, when you ate dinner or lunch today or whatever, or breakfast, you were taking in some prana through your food. Okay, so that's one way that you get prana, is just through normal eating. Third is apana, which controls the solar plexus to the soles of the feet. It concerns the organs of elimination, of rejection, and of birth, thus having special relation to the organs of generation and elimination. So the 6 organs, the organs of elimination, have operate on this third type of prana. Fourth is called upana, and it's found between the nose and the top of the head. It has special relation to the brain, nose, and eyes, and when properly controlled, produces the coordination of the vital errors and their correct handling. Okay, and the 5th is called Vyana, and this is a term applied to the sum total of pranic energy as it is distributed evenly throughout the entire body. Its instruments are thousands of nadis or nerves found in the body, and it has a peculiar and definite connection to the blood channels, the veins, and the arteries. Okay, so this prana as a whole, he says, circulates through the blood, and he quotes a scripture from the Old Testament quite often in his writings that the blood is the life, because the blood is the final place where the main essence of prana is circulated into the life essence of all the different parts of our body. Okay, well, that'd probably be a good place to leave off for next week. Before we sign off here, any comments or questions on what we covered here?
Well, there's a book called First Principles of Theosophy where they go into what prana is from the theosophical point of view, and they show it pictured as like a flower with 7 different colored petals on it. And you know, when I was in California years ago, I used to lay on the beach and look kind of with a distant stare up into the sky, and you could actually see these globules of prana coming from the sun.
Oh yeah. Oh.
I used to do that too. You could see movement, little particles. You lay on your back and you look up toward the sun, and you can see the prana moving through the atmosphere. I don't know if you can do it in Idaho, but back there the air was pretty different.
Yeah, I come across these people that taught sun gazing, and the sun gaze, you can look at the sun safely within a few minutes after it sets, before it sets, or after it rises, when the rays aren't that intense. And you start out looking at it for like 10 seconds, and then increase 5 seconds here and there until you get up to a minute or two. And I did it for a while. I didn't notice a lot of benefits with on the physical level, but I did find one thing very fascinating was I kept seeing a symbol in the sun, and it kept changing. It was like shifting around a little bit like Star David or something, but I wasn't sure what it was, but it kept moving around, and I had a most difficult time making it out. And I haven't talked to anyone else that's ever saw that symbol, but if anyone ever does, or in this group has, I would be interested in hearing your opinion on it. But anyway, I found that quite interesting that I saw that, but it was in motion. It kept changing form somewhat, so I had a hard time following it. But I found that quite interesting, and haven't heard anyone else talk about seeing that symbol in the sun. But would be interesting to see it drawn physically somewhere. Okay, any other comments before we sign off? Anybody else ever done sun gazing? Rulina, have you done it?
Yeah, I did it for a while. I got up to about 20 minutes. I could easily watch the sun.
Yeah.
25 minutes. And then, again, I wasn't seeing a lot of
change
from it. And, after 25 minutes, you're getting to longer and longer. So I didn't stick with it.
Yeah, I was the same way. I think I got up to about 20 minutes, and I, for the amount of time and effort it took, I didn't see a lot of benefit. Now, I'm a member of a sun gazing list, and the guy that's ahead of it, he gazes directly at the sun at noon. And apparently it doesn't hurt him at all. He's been doing it for years. But
he's blind, but it doesn't hurt him.
No, I found that after doing that for about 20 minutes, I could actually look at the sun noonday for several minutes, and it didn't bother me too.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't quite, wasn't quite brave enough to do that, but you looked at the sun a couple minutes. Now, I think Susan Manning has done some sun gazing, but she's not here, but it seemed like she talked about it one time also. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. And yeah, when I first started reading about it, boy, people were making all kinds of wild claims about what it would do, but I didn't notice a heck of a lot of difference. And you didn't either then, huh? Yeah. Anybody else that had done any sun gazing? Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing to try. If you do it, make sure you do it within 20 minutes of sunset or sunrise. That way the sun's rays won't hurt your eyes, and start out just maybe 10 seconds and then gradually increase it if you want to play with it. But some people claim that cures all kinds of diseases and a bunch of things. Of course, I didn't have much wrong with me anyway, so maybe that's why I didn't notice a lot. But were you in pretty good health when you did it, Rulina?
Yeah, I did. There was one small thing. It seemed like my eyes didn't get as tired as quickly. But
yeah, it is.
Again,
it is good for your eyes. Matter of fact,
I didn't feel like the time that it was invested was enough to warrant continuing.
Matter of fact, Aldous Huxley, the author of The Brave New World, he was legally blind for a period of time, and he decided to do something about it. So he did a bunch of research into the eyes, And one of the exercises he come up with was just looking at the sun during noonday, but just for really short periods of time. He said stimulates the eyes and is very healthy for him. That he did a bunch of different things, and that was one of them, and he gained his vision back. It was almost miraculous what he did. So
I wonder if looking into the sun would help stimulate in a positive way that fivefold prana that's internalized in our being. If it would,
it probably wouldn't hurt.
what I'm
I
thinking.
do out in the middle of the day. I'll just sometimes look at the sun for just a short period of time. I know that it's a stimulating, but it won't hurt your eyes, and it probably does stimulate prana to a degree. It's an interesting thought.
Speaking of eyes, I've noticed on the video playbacks when you post them on Molecular Group, my left eye blinks more. One eye blinks more than the other eye.
Really?
And I'm not winking at y'all.
Yeah, that's kind of unusual.
That's left over from an industrial accident, basically. I got a finish nail in the eye.
Oh, really?
From
Wow.
a pneumatic finish nail gun. We call them putzik, because that's
You're lucky to
common.
have vision then, huh?
I had to actually physically pull that finish nail out of my eye, and it's
Wow.
like, talk about something that's hard on the stomach.
Boy, I guess. Wow.
You know,
Were you trying to see if it was loaded or what?
what it was is I was using this nail gun, and the finish nail that the last one I shot ricocheted off of a knot in the wood and came back out of the wood and hit me and landed and punctured. It went right in my eye.
But you didn't lose your vision?
No, I had a red spot. It was below the iris,
Well, that was
the
good.
white part,
Huh.
and I had a red spot there for years. But I've noticed I can't see it in this live video because if I blink, my eyes are closed and I can't see it. So. But I've noticed in the playbacks that I forget which one it is now. I think it's this one here actually blinks more. That might have been the eye that it was. It's been so long since it happened. I don't remember even which eye it was, but I do know that it does get irritated. One eye gets irritated faster than the other. So if you see me winking, I'm not coming on to anybody. It's just
Interesting.
old wound.
Well, I'm glad you at least salvaged your vision out of the deal. That's
it takes a lot to keep me
kind of
down.
tough to lose that. Okay, everybody. Well, I will sign off then, and appreciate everybody showing up. And we will see you next Sunday at 10 a.m. All being well.
Have a great week, everybody.